Hello, good morning. Ooh, that's on. Welcome everybody to NYIABF Presents, which is our programming series for the New York Book Fair. It's presented by the Mid-Atlantic chapter of the ABAA. My name is Sunday Steinkirchner. I'm the owner of B&B Rare Books here in New York City and the chair of the book fair. We are very happy to welcome you here today for our first program of the day, Sharing the World of Rare Books in conversation with Jessie Paris Smith. Jessie Paris Smith is a writer, composer, event producer, and Grammy-nominated musician based in New York City. She is the co-founder of the climate action nonprofit Pathway to Paris, a certified grief support coach, and weekly contributing writer on Substack. As an avid reader, former bookbinder, and collector of books and longtime admirer of the fair, she is the first ambassador of the New York Antiquarian Book Fair. And I'll also introduce, thanks. Thank you. We're so happy to have you with us. And I'll introduce our panelist. Patti Smith is a writer, performer, and visual artist. She gained recognition in the 1970s for her revolutionary merging of poetry and rock and roll. Her books include Just Kids, winner of the National Book Award in 2010, Wit, Babel, Wool Gathering, The Coral Sea, Auguries of Innocence, M-Train, Devotion, Year of the Monkey, and Book of Days. Smith was awarded the title of Commandeur des Arts et des Lettres and the Legion of Honor by the French Republic. She was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2007. Cara Schlesinger is the proprietor of Fanewool Bindery, a private practice in New York City specializing in book conservation, preservation enclosures, and handbook binding. She works with the antiquarian book trade, me included. She's made me many wonderful boxes, and numerous other institutional and private collections, including the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the Grolier Club, and Columbia University Libraries. Jessie R. Erickson is the Astor Curator of Printed Books and Bindings at the Morgan Library and Museum, and a private collector of works of the Victorian period author Rita. He is the co-editor of the Papers of the Bibliographic Society of America. And last but not least, we have Julien Paganetti, who's the founder and director of Autographe du Siècle, an approved expert with the CNE, the National Company of Experts, and the National Federation of Professional Experts and Specialized in the Arts. Autographe du Siècle, also inside at the book fair, gallery specializes in the appraisal and sale of autograph letters, manuscripts, works of art relating to the great personalities of the past centuries. And without further ado, Jessie, take it away.
Thank you, Sunday. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And thank you to these amazing people for joining. It's been so incredible to be more officially involved with the book fair and the ABAA and doing events like this and brainstorming together for things we can do next year. It's been really exciting. So thank you so very much. Such an honor. So putting together this conversation, it was really important to me to hear the perspectives of different roles within the antiquarian world and the book fair. So I wanted to just maybe have 20 people, but it was able to have these 4 people consolidated together to cover all of these incredible roles: a bookbinder, conservator, someone from a beloved New York institution, someone who is from overseas, a bookseller in the fair, scholar, an expert in manuscripts, antiquarian books, a writer, and just patrons, beloved patrons of the fair and readers. So within these 4 people, we have all of those roles covered and more. And also wanted to choose people who had connecting threads between them. So of course, this is my mom. So we have a close connecting thread, and she was the first person who brought me to the book fair. So our connection isn't just between the 2 of us, it's also because she introduced me to the book fair. So I'm very thankful for that. And she's very dear friends with Julien, and also a long-term admirer and patron of his booth at the fair. And I was a bookbinder, hope to be a bookbinder again. So really wanted to make sure to have the voice of a bookbinder and conservator, because to me they're the superstars of the antiquarian world. So she is a hero. And I know that she is a fan of Jesse, as we all are, of his accomplishments and his work. And of course he comes to us from the Morgan, which is a beloved institution to all of us. And my mom and I have performed there often. We just performed there in March and performing again next Friday. So there's all these different connecting threads between us. So that just highlights the magic of the book fair and the antiquarian world. So that was my mission with having this conversation. So now we've had formal introductions. So I would love if each person could share about their own connection with the book fair and how it's been meaningful and purposeful in your professional and personal life. So if each person wants to say a few words, that would be lovely.
Me?
Mama, you start.
Okay. Well, I love the book fair. I began as a voyeur because when I first came to the book fair, I really had no money. But to see the things in person that I got to see, the first time I got to see manuscripts written in the hand of Genet or Baudelaire, so many, to see these books in person, to make friends with booksellers who really didn't mind that I couldn't buy anything because of the obvious love and admiration I had for what they had on display. And I made friends with many booksellers, and it's been for the past 20 years. And I just feel that it's enriched my life. And again, I got to see things I never dreamed I'd see, and not in some intimidating museum, but in a very intimate place where you could, they didn't mind if you stared at a drawing by William Burroughs or the rarest print by William Blake. And there's a sense of joy of sharing all of these wonderful things. So it's enriched my life. And as time went by, I was even able to buy a few things, and then bring my daughter, who shared an equal love of the book fair, which is so rewarding. I just want to say it's amazing to start out as a sort of a scruffy vagabond and now be sitting here with my daughter as an ambassador. So.
Julien, do you want to share?
First of all, I want to say to Patti that she can be proud of Jessie, because I believe she's the perfect ambassador for the fair. That's the first thing I wanted to say. Usually in my life, I love places of culture and passion, and I believe that this place is very special because it's a place of beauty, a place of passion, a place of culture, a place of sharing, passion. And I came there for the first time, I believe it was in 2012, as a visitor. I was already a dealer in manuscripts, and I was exhibiting only in Paris. And I came here every year from 2012. And all dealers are passionate by books, by manuscripts. You can feel, you can see and smiles on faces every day. That's not so common in real life. And I'm exhibiting here, thanks to my friend Benoit, since 2020, I believe. And I'm really happy for that.
Well, for me, I was a voyeur in the beginning too, and it really is. It's like walking into a museum where you can touch everything you want to see, which is astonishing. Some things that just bowled me over by their beauty and their age and their history. And I could say to the dealer, "Can you show me that?" And they would take it out and say, "Yes, absolutely." And the excitement of people in sharing what's here. and wanting to, like, that's the whole purpose of this fair, is sharing, right? So over the years, it's become for me not just sharing the books, but sharing in a community, getting to know the dealers, but also seeing friends and colleagues who come here and meeting them and getting together with them and putting our heads together over a book or texting each other photos. Oh my God, did you see what so-and-so has in their booth? And then also increasingly over the years, meeting with clients here, seeing what they've brought, seeing what needs help. Are there some books that need protection or stabilization? And what can I do to help make that book safe to move on to the next hands? Or seeing work in the booths that I have worked on. Books that came to me unhappy, and now they're happy, and they're going to find their next forever home until, you know, the next generation ends, and then they'll find their next forever home, because forever is a lot longer for a book than it is for us. And so being here is a way to be part of that, and it's the most exciting place in the world for me to be part of that, is this week, this fair here.
Well, welcome everybody. Thank you all for joining us today, and I'm so humbled to even be on this panel. You know, it's just such an honor. I've been coming to this fair for years. Similarly, you know, in my own sort of life as a collector, I remember the early days when I'd come here and I'd go make the rounds and ask for Weta books, and a lot of the vendors said, "Oh, we don't have that. Weta is not widely collected." Yeah, and on a panel I was on, the last time I was on a panel here, just to give you some context, my daughter was born that night, and she's now 5. Yeah, so how time flies, yeah. But for me, I mean, to work in the rare book world and to be a curator or special collections librarian or some combination of both, this is like Coachella, this is like the Super Bowl, you know, this is a big deal for us. And, you know, so when we come here, it's all about community. There are so many, you know, people in the field that I have deep relations with, so many booksellers that I've become so well acquainted with over the years, and they are shining lights in this field, doing amazing things, and they've become friends. Just during the preview, I ran into somebody that I went to school with when I was an undergrad, so almost 20 years ago, and you know, we were really excited to see each other, and you know, it's those kinds of connections and those kinds of moments that make this experience really special. But as somebody who is tasked with professional responsibilities, it also makes it a little difficult to get down the aisles because you know, you want to spend a lot of time catching up with old friends. But the energy here is electric, and it's just a fantastic experience all around.
Thank you guys. Aren't they the coolest? They're so cool. Anyway, sorry. So you've already all sort of touched on this already in different ways, but the next question is a little bit maybe broader outside of the fair. So I'll start with you, Mame. How can the book fair have an effect on our present culture?
Well, I think in a lot of ways, just as even though our culture has changed much since I was in my 20s, the way it affected me by seeing our heritage, our literary, scriptural, scientific, mathematic, nautical heritage in person, seeing it as objects, feeling the paper, getting a sense of the creator, getting a sense of the person who drew or wrote these words, and a sense of the passion of the binders, a passion of the people who saved these precious things. Because, you know, we are in a culture now where much of our knowledge and information is collected and assimilated and studied digitally. And here we are reminded that by seeing all of this work not captured in a cloud, but each object a cloud itself. Each book, each map, each precious fragment, photograph is a cloud unto itself. And I think it's important for each generation to see that, to know that, to taste that. And all of our, I mean, it's a business, yes, there's dealers, yes, but it's more than that. These are people who have spent their life preserving, finding, rooting out in the craziest of places our precious heritage, and then sharing it. Each thing that we'll see out there in these glass cases, whether accessible or not, are seeds. And, you know, these seeds can either be, you know, studied here or obtained to go out into the world. But I think our culture, every single generation needs to see their origins. They need to get a sense of where the knowledge, whether it's scriptural or scientific or imaginative, comes from, the creative source. And the closest we can get to the artist or the writer from the 16th, 17th, 19th century is seeing the work in person, seeing the notebooks, a letter. You know, a letter of Baudelaire brings us right to Baudelaire himself, much more than information stored. So, yes, I think, you know, we'll send those clouds out into the world, the physical clouds.
That's so nice. I love that. Do you wanna maybe add something?
Well, I agree with everything that Patti just said. And I would add to that the fair, it doesn't just affect present culture. I think the fair is present culture. I mean, we're all here. We live in the present. This is the culture that we all inhabit. And we're all here taking part in this, transacting, learning, experiencing from everything that's here at this fair. And we're bringing our interests and our knowledge and our curiosity into what's happening here. So I mean, it's important to know about our origins and our history, but it's also important to see what we have forgotten about history. And I think as people bring their new research and their new collecting interests into the room, the fair becomes more reflective of what's happening outside those doors. I think Jesse's collecting interests are reflective of that, and many others who are starting to bring material into the room that isn't necessarily, you know, a leather-bound tome from the 16th century, but some of the more scrappy printed stuff that might have gotten lost in the 16th or 17th century or the 20th century that represented pieces of culture that weren't necessarily part of the history we thought of when we came to an antiquarian book fair and looked for history. And that's present culture now, because these are our interests. This is what we are learning and remembering and bringing back to the fore. So I see it as happening both ways and as being very much alive here. This isn't just a looking back. It is a participating now, in my view.
I love that. You said that the other day, the book fair is alive.
I think it is alive.
It's alive.
I think we all feel that.
Yeah. So this leads into the question for Jesse, which is, how do you feel the advancement of our digital age is affecting antiquarian book culture?
Yeah, I love this question, and I'm going to muse on some of the other responses and challenge us to think a little differently about what's happening now in terms of the ascendancy of digital textuality as a new paradigm by which we consume stories and interact with the culture and create culture. So first, I like what you said about, you know, the sort of presentism of our engagement with antiquarian books as being a story of today. I tend to view time in both linear and nonlinear ways. So this notion of sort of retro futures and how they affect the present is always front of mind when I think about these things. But one important aspect I really want to press on is that, to me, it seems to me that our interaction with digital textuality is very physical. And it's because of our relationship to time, because of the present nature of it, the fact that we're in it now, it kind of puts up a wall between the materiality of digital text and the language that we use to describe it, language like the cloud, also puts a wall between the very tactile and physicality of digital content. So it's written on hard drives. The information is stored in servers, which are very physical in physical places. They affect the environment. They affect our lives ergonomically when we interact with them. I've watched my kids play a game called, not a game, but it's a metaverse called Roblox. They're very physically engaged in that with their fingers. I've tried to do the obstacle courses with them called obbies. I'm terrible at them. They're whizzes because of the way that their sort of tactile proficiency and the haptics of digital technology. And I think that the further we get removed away from this as the current sort of dominant textual paradigm, the more that we will see the physicality of it, the more that we'll understand the physicality of it, and that it is rooted in a time and a place. And, you know, we'll also understand that there's so much involved in the production of digital content, so many systems of labor involved, from, you know, coders to shippers and manufacturers and people mining the rare earth elements to get into the microchip. All of this is so physical, and all of this is very important. So, you know, I think it's the ethereal nature of the way that we describe it that kind of removes us from it, and also, you know, the fact that we're in it now. Now, I think it's also important to recognize the connection that we have through history and how it relates to the way that the culture is moving forward. And this is moving very fast. I have the benefit of having two small children, a 5- and a 7-year-old. And they are teaching me literacy in meme culture, which I learned is extremely complex and layered. I thought it was an aside, I thought it was sort of a diversion, but I've learned that it's a whole new way of communicating and a whole new way of storytelling that is extremely sophisticated once you come into the awareness of that. Now, a lot of the stories that are recomprised, reconstituted in meme culture are decontextualized from their source. Now that's where I think the importance of antiquarian books and rare books have in this story. For young folks, something like Dragon Ball Z looms large, right? And rest in peace to Toriyama, who recently passed. But, you know, I cannot begin to describe the immensity of how popular of an impact Dragon Ball Z has had. And you see today, you know, if you see Harry Potter represented in the aisles. You see, you know, increasingly more elements of hip-hop culture represented in what booksellers are selling in archival collections and such. And that's good and it's important. But I think where there's a lot of potential to connect these worlds, print culture, meme culture. Something like Dragon Ball Z, you know, has origins in 16th century story, Journey to the West, right? And a lot of people aren't aware of that, right? And there's so many connections like that, right? There's a viral meme right now of the Oompa Loompa song, right? And it's true. My kids sing it all the time. It's a new version of it, not the one that probably we were familiar with from the Gene Wilder version, but there's a new version that just came out in a new song, and they're not aware of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory being a printed book, right, in its origins. So I think bridging those worlds and helping to bring some context to an increasingly decontextualized information environment gives us a lot of potential there. And yeah, and I'll just wrap it up by saying that, you know, it's really beautiful to see the way that the culture moves forward. I don't see this as sort of oppositional, right? The digital sphere and elements of print culture, just like I don't see print culture being in opposition to, you know, orality or cultures of script, all of which still exist today, right? I see us in sort of a symbiotic environment where one modality rises in ascendancy and becomes sort of the dominant paradigm, and the others still exist, but in conversation, right? And I think it's centering those conversations to bring people into the awareness of things like the Starbucks logo having a connection to, you know, an early modern representation of Melusina is where the greatest potential lies to maintain its cultural relevance.
Thank you. I just want to say that listening to him talk about the future, it brought me, now too, when he first told me his thoughts, it brought me so much comfort in the future, because I'm someone who's terrified of AI, and I've never used Chat GPT or whatever. I'm like, I wouldn't want to look at it. Like, that stuff scares me so much, and I always think that we're going to lose everything to the digital world. And when I asked him about it, he just had all this excitement. I said, no, there's so much we can do. And he really put it into context of how we're in the midst of a shift. And then he kind of took me in this journey through history all the way to Plato time of all the different shifts that have occurred. And, you know, he said, well, you know, kids now, they watch streams of video games. When we were kids, we played video games all the way back to, you know, they were terrified of the introduction of the Greek alphabet. Like, it's the end of everything, the alphabet's coming. And then, and then with the invention of the printing press, like, oh, well, now we're going to have, you know, typeface, and we're going to lose everything. So he put it into context for me, like, there's all these shifts throughout all history, and probably if we took a time machine and talked to each person, they would feel the same way that I do about ChatGPT, and look at all the amazing things that happen when we, like you said, we listen to each other, we learn from each other. And then he said there's so much potential with the book fair for the future, and so much in the antiquarian world that can, you said, we can remix culture, we can remix things. And that just, like, on talking to him, I was like, oh, okay. I just felt comforted and relaxed, and that's hugely valuable. So thank you for sharing your thoughts.
Yeah. Even novels had their moment where they were vilified. Like, don't let your kids read novels; it'll ruin them. You know. So.
Yeah, everything. Rock and roll music, the devil's music is coming. Okay, so next question is for Julien. It's your turn. So on the opening night of the book fair, Sunday, who introduced us all, we walked around to all the booths and went to the sellers and said, okay, what's your best thing? What's your favorite thing you have? And it was so funny that there were really only two reactions. Either someone said, these are my babies, how can I choose? Or they said, this one, and they brought us directly to the thing. So that was really great. And then yesterday I went to all the booths and said, okay, what did you sell that so far that you're a little bit sad about? And so it's just so interesting to hear those personal responses from the booksellers. So as a seller in the fair, my question for you is, how you're an expert on manuscripts. So there's books and there's all different kinds of things, and you of course have these beautiful manuscripts and letters. So you have to take all these things from France and bring them over here. So how do you decide what to bring with you, and what excites you about sharing your collection at the book fair?
That's a perfect question. There is not so many places where one country could meet another country. Let's speak about France with USA. France could meet Italy. There is a lot of nationalities here, so that's really a big excitement. My business is quite simple in real because I'm just dealing with things I love. So to answer your question, what should I bring to the US? Things I love. And if I love it, I believe that someone else could love it too. So.
Like me.
We have a problem because Patti loves the things I love. So. And to follow about the question about future, present, and past, in the same way of thinking, you can find so many places where past could meet the present to build the future. And I want to tell you a very short story. It was last year. I was displaying a photograph of Albert Camus, a French novelist, very famous in France. And a young kid arrived, maybe 15 years old, and he said to me, "Oh my gosh, it's Albert Camus." And first of all, I was really surprised that an American teenager knew Albert Camus. So I was already glad. And his dad arrived, and he said to him, I can't remember his first name, I'm so sorry, but he said to him, "Do you like the photograph?" "Oh, Dad, that's so amazing. The photograph is so beautiful." And Dad said to his son, "Okay, son, it's yours. I buy it." It was just a small amount of money. And I saw the kid crying. And he said to me, "Julien, it's probably one of the most beautiful days of my life." And there's just one thing he didn't know at that time, so it was probably one of the best days of my life to see an American teenager being fascinated by a French novelist I love, and to see, he was 15, and I believe he will love French culture, novels for the rest of his life. So that's good news for the future, in my opinion.
That was so beautiful. I know I'm gonna cry. I bet you've had moments like that with Julien too. Tell us a story about finding something magical in Julien's book.
Which one? Well, I mean, Julien did actually a beautiful thing for me. Since I was like 15 or 16, I have wanted a photograph of Nerval, of Gerard de Nerval, and they're very rare. It's not even that they cost so much, you just can't find them. And I told him my dream, and then I told him my dream. I mean, I guess this is abstract, but this again is how the fair is great. He became my friend through the fair, through the faces of French poets. And he found me one, and he said, he's very like a secret agent. Had me meet him, on a Paris street, right near, a Paris cafe where Sartre and everyone used to drink coffee. And he goes like this. Whoops, I'm sorry. And he pulls it out of his pocket, a beautiful little cabinet picture of Nerval. It was one of the happiest days of my life. But everything, like now, I went to the first booth, I can't help it, I go right there, and B22. And it's just not which thing, it's like, they're all, every single one, a drawing of Modigliani, who I've loved since a teenager, I've never seen, but feels so much like him, as much as anything I've seen in a museum. And, whether it's a transcript or a letter of Rimbaud or something of Baudelaire's. Every single thing is precious. And, but the most precious is the friendship that we have made through all of these wonderful manuscripts and photographs and a mutual passion for French literature.
That's so nice. Thank you, guys. I just realized I skipped my question for you from earlier. I'm going to go back to it. So she's, to me, like, I keep saying this, like she's the superhero, the superstar of this world because you
Jess is the one who intimidated me most.
I know, she was so nervous. I was like, but you're the caretaker of the books. The books wouldn't be here without people like you taking care of them and making them and making sure that they can survive through the centuries. So my question for you is, as a bookbinder and conservator, what do you want people to think about as they encounter antiquarian books?
Actually, I would answer that by responding to what Julien was saying about the past meeting the present to look toward the future. I think you can do that here with everything that you look at or handle. I'm thinking in particular about there's an incunable that someone has inside that I worked on. Late 1400s, I don't remember the exact year, probably 1470s. That had been rebound. So there was the initial production of the pages, and then the person or people who sewed it and put it into its binding. The binding had broken and the book had been rebound. And then it lived its life through the centuries, and it came to me because over the years the pages had torn or there were losses, and so the dealer who has it now wanted me to stabilize it in such a way that was obscuring the text less or maybe putting less stress on the pages so they would move more easily. So I got to sit there with this book and undo the work of another binder who had repaired it after all of those hundreds of years. And I'm sitting there looking at it and communing with all of these people, with the person who sewed it, and with the person who made the decision to repair the pages in that way. And then I found the best way to undo that work that I was able to do, and then repaired it in a way that I felt was more friendly to the book, and then handed it back so it can move on. And so it's just this direct line of all of those people through me to whoever the next person is who works on this book. And I think everything that you look at in the fair, you can see all of those people. It's not just the artists and the writers who make the books. And in a way, those are the most obvious people to think about when you look at a book, because the work is so beautiful and it's so moving and so important and historically significant or spiritually moving. But in order for it to reach you, it had to be captured in this format. So I would ask everybody to look at the object and think about all the people who brought that object to life, and think about the life that that object has lived up till now. You're not going to see a lot of rough, damaged objects here. That's not what comes to the armory. But sometimes hidden away in a corner, you'll see a book with a detached board, or you'll see a periodical that's just been read to death. And think about all the people who handled that and who caused that damage. And someday maybe someone will look at it and say, okay, I want to stabilize that damage so that it can move on to the next hands. Or someone might just say, maybe I'll just wrap this in a piece of paper or slip it into a bag so I can give it to my kids. So it's all about the past and the present meeting and moving on to the future. I think that's exactly what I would ask people to think about when they come to the fair.
I love the way you talk about, oh, sorry.
Nope.
Yay. I love the way you talk about the lineage of a book. I just think of when you handle each book, you see like this like lineage of people throughout the centuries. And I liked you said the other day we were talking, and you said as you walk through the fair, you meet, I don't remember how you said it, something like you meet your colleagues or something when you see the hand of a bookbinder who made it 500 years ago. Like these are your people. You might be in completely different eras or time periods, but you're working together, you're collaborating, and I love the way you talk about that. It's so nice. And I can't wait to make books with you.
We're going to do that.
Yay. Okay, so thank you. Next, what's next? Okay, so next question is for Mama. For you? You ready? Okay. So we've all sort of, or everyone here has answered this question in different ways, but maybe we can all answer it again. But so I have different friends I've been asking over the last weeks, have you been to the Antiquarian Book Fair? And I was surprised by the answers that were like, oh, I could never go there, it's too intimidating, or oh no, I don't really know anything about antiquarian books, or no, I can't afford it, I don't have money to buy something, or it's out of my price range, or you know, I don't think I would be welcome there, I'm too weird, I don't know, all kinds of answers like that that surprised me because you know, the book fair is the most warm and welcoming place I can imagine. So as a patron of the fair, knowing that people, maybe younger people, or maybe just people who have never delved into this world before, or they have an idea about it because just from the outside looking in, or the word antiquarian throws them off, what would you like people to know about the book fair? What would you love those people to know about it?
Well, I mean, I just love for anyone who has any connection with any story, any writer, well, any vocation, to know that they can come here and see some of the beautiful physical origins of the things they're interested in. I really liked what Jesse was saying. It gave me a little comfort too, but I thought he also was touching on the fact that, you know, there is, in terms of, we have, you know, a 13th century map, but there could be a 21st century artifact, or a certain book, or certain, you know,